And from this slightly lengthened breath flow, try to use, from here, use about half as much effort. So you're still breathing, you're not gasping for air here. You're still getting all the breath you need. But you're just sort of letting it come to you a little bit more. In terms of this sutra, this would be a subtler state of experience. This would correspond to what's called the dreaming state, a more subtler state of awareness. A little bit harder to keep your focus here, but it also gives you access to a more expansive and a subtler, like I said, experience of the breath. You can swallow and feel the breath making its way to the heart, and we'll just go one more step. And here, just take a couple moments to actually see if you can allow the breath to move on its own with ultra minimal effort, almost no effort at all. At this stage, it's called the dreamless state, the thoughtless state. It's an even more slippery space for our awareness, but it's an even more expansive way to experience the breath. You can let your spine move a little bit, shoulders move a little bit, the eyes flutter open. And so last week we actually only read a little bit into this sutra because the discussion was so rich, and we talked a lot about, I'm going to go ahead and share so you can see that first paragraph. We talked a lot about this idea of putting the cause in its cause, and then that cause in its cause, and so on. That was the first paragraph. With the idea that this feeling of almost like stepping our awareness slowly but surely inward and then more inward would draw us closer and closer to an experience of Shiva. And then we saw that in the end of that first paragraph, it said, when you do finally arrive at that initial cause, the most subtle experience, you can't actually become an observer of Shiva at that state. Sort of like how Babaji always tells us, you can't bring your baggage with you. But because it says there the observed and the observer become one. And so we're trying to go from the state that we find ourselves in everyday life, which is very much I'm looking at things around me, I'm observing something. We're trying to literally walk ourselves towards a state that does not correspond to this at all, where you actually are merging with that which would appear to be outside of you. And so that was sort of where we left off, which is huge, and that first paragraph was so rich. So before we start, any comments on maybe things that stuck with you from last week? Maybe little glimmers of that sparked in your meditation practice? Just a moment here. And I know I didn't tell you to prepare any of that, so okay. Cool. All right. So we're gonna just keep moving. I've highlighted sections of the sutra that I think are really help summarize it, and so we won't be reading every word of the sutra, um, but let's get started. So Megan, I haven't had you read in a while, so if you can, hopefully you can read that yellow highlighted section, and there is some Sanskrit in here, so don't stress it.
Should we just read
Oh,
the sutra?
oh,
Just
sure,
because not
sure.
everyone was
Thank you.
here last week?
Great idea, great idea.
Sorry, Megan, you'll have to wait a
Go
second.
ahead. You can start.
Oh, okay. So the sutra that we're studying is Sutra 3.4, and the Sanskrit is on the screen. Sharira Samhara Kalanam. Kalanam. Sharira Samhara Kalanam. And the translation, you must make all the circles, kalas, in your body enter one into the other from gross to subtle.
So this whole sutra is really just exploring what that concept is. Circles from gross to subtle. All right, give it a shot, Megan. I know there's some tricky Sanskrit, but see what you got. Oh, hold on. You're muted. I don't know if I can unmute you, so you meant to just do it.
There you go.
Cool.
My bad. Okay. To explain more clearly from the element earth to Shiva Tattva, there are 5 circles or enclosures that form the boundaries for all the 36 tattvas. These 5 circles, kalas, are Navritti Kala, Pratistha Kala, Vidya Kala, Santa Kala, and Santa Chitta Kala. You have to make these 5 circles, kalas, enter into each other in your own body, which is comprised of 3 states: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Here you have to think that the grossest circle has entered in its nearest, more subtle circle, and that circle has entered in its nearest, still more subtle circle, and so forth.
Okay. Take a moment. If anybody's a visual learner, this is like the 30 seconds afterwards, just scanning the text. And while we're all doing that, I'll feel free to compose a question or a comment. Hey, Octavia, welcome. There might be there's a lot of terms in there that none of us probably know about because of these circles. These circles have their own name. This is the first time we've seen the names of these circles. But we have heard words like...
Oh, I just want to see the second half.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know. I wish I could get them both on the same page. Sorry. So we're going to look at these circles in a moment, but...
I guess I have something that I find interesting, and it might be a dead end. But I guess the idea that the grossest circle would like enter the subtler circle sort of seems surprising to me. Like I almost feel like as we get into the subtler realms, I guess I would imagine like, oh, we like leave the baggage behind. And so this makes it sound like we're actually taking something denser and like transmuting it into this subtler realm. So that's just sort of like a question mark for me. And maybe it has to do with like using our practice to digest it, and so it's no longer this gross thing, but we can like extract the energy from it. I don't know, but Megan, I see your hand.
Maybe it's like more scattered, like less, like refined. So it's just got more like junk in it that needs to be cleared out.
Yeah, it's almost like collecting it, like starts to organize it, and so it distills it down into something we can process. So it's not so scattered anymore. Radharani, and then Dharma.
At this like I had the same feeling when we read a little bit last time. It's like, oh wow, we're bringing things, but then I also started to looking at it like we are mostly like our attention is mostly on the gross level. So it's like for me a little bit is like taking that focus from that level to the next one, taking that focus to the next one. So that's the way a little bit I could relate, like because we are at least our my mind is mostly on the gross level most of the time, and the idea will be to take the focus from it to the next level. Something.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. It's almost like we have this consciousness, and when we're focused on the material world around us, it's almost like our consciousness pours into these objects, and then our work is to, as you said, almost like start to draw that consciousness out of the objects and back to the subtler circle. And then I guess eventually there's more, and we do it again in a subtler way. Thanks for sharing. That really helped me, Radharani.
Go for
Yeah.
it.
So, and maybe this is just an association because Henry and I were listening to music earlier tonight, and we were listening to Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the Willie Nelson version, and thinking of like a rainbow. Sometimes if it's like not a full rainbow, like you can only see a couple of those rings, but when you really see like a full rainbow, there are rings inside of those. And so I'm sort of imagining these circles that it talks about, sort of moving within just that visualization of like a rainbow, or sort of the spectrum, as it were, and that there's this sort of like gross level, but then you move to sort of different elements within that spectrum.
Mm-hmm. In a way, yeah, like the grossest level would be the widest circle. But see, I think that's the part that really trips my mind up, is that appears to be outside, and like we appear to be going in, where this is like inverting that, thinking that the big one's going to fit into the small one, and then that one's going to fit into the... But that sounds about right, because it's always the opposite of what you logically think. Isn't it? Always the opposite.
It reminds me of something that you've been talking about, and I really don't get this, so I probably shouldn't bring it up.
Oh boy, usually not.
I've already.
Oh boy.
Well, it's really cool though. So Satyam's reading this book about Ganesh that Baba told him to read,
yeah.
and it talks about how the subtle realms are contained within the gross. So it's like I think of like astrals, like, oh, I gotta really get really big, right? But it's like it's
like
actually
heaven's out there.
like within these subatomic levels.
Yeah, they say that like if you zoom in to like a subatomic level and then go to a subatomic of that and then subatomic of that, that's the astral level, and that level is actually more bigger than our physical reality, though it is that much more magnified. But you bit off that one. I can't take that much further. That was not...
It could just be seeds
Yeah,
that
it
we're
could be
planting.
it's just... Could I, practically speaking, this concept for me, the gross and the subtle relationship, going from gross to subtle, and how they interconnect, it makes me think of Rudy's work, where I really feel like, he always says you have to get this level before you can go. You have to manage your horizontal life before you can go vertically. So it's like you have to manage, which I would think is the equivalent of make this circle enter into this circle. Like you have to manage this circle, this horizontal life, which, is grosser, more physical. Once you encompass that circle, you are able to go into the more subtle circle. And so it sort of feels a little bit like Radharani was talking about, where it's like our awareness is what is encompassing this. It's like we're eating it, and then like once we've eaten that meal, we can have the lighter dessert. And once you've eaten your lighter dessert, then you can just enjoy the sunset, which is even subtler. Anyway, Radharani, yeah.
And I don't, don't want to make it a little more confusing or anything, but you know how we are using two versions of these, right? We're using this version and the Jaideva Singh version. And the other version, he translated it as dissolving. So I like that. So
Slowly.
this sutra, when he's translating the sutra, Jaideva Singh says, instead of making a circle, going to a circle, it says dissolving.
Oh, dissolving. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Dissolve into. I like that one a little. I mean, that image a little more than, because we get into that trying to fit something into, but it's more. He says like you're going to dissolve from the gross body to the subtle. So
Sure.
I like that.
It does make, yeah. Thanks, Radharani. Great. It really helps.
Do you want to teach the? No, just.
Well, let's take a look at these circles. They are named in the next paragraph.
And I was joking. Thank you for sharing that. That is like really above and beyond, and you
Yeah.
could teach this.
The old, yeah, multi-source there. Hey, Usha, do you want to read the purple? Oh, let's see. You can unmute yourself. I'll try. Ask to oh, shoot. I just muted you because I was clicking ask to unmute, but you do it one more time. We did it at the same time, and there you go. You got it.
Got it? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Nivitri Kala is situated in the grossest element, which is the element earth, Praviti Tattva. The next circle is Pratishta Kala. Pratishta Kala possesses the 24 elements from water, Jala Tattva to Prakriti Tattva.
Nice.
The third circle is called Vidya Kala. Vidya Kala possesses 6 elements. These are the sixfold coverings, Sat Kanchukas,
Yeah.
Kala, Vidya, Raja, Kala, Niti, and Maya, the elusive energy of God. You find the 4 circles, Santa Kala, in the Supreme Pure Being, from Sudha Vidya Tattva to Shakti Tattva. The 5th circle, Shantitita Kala, is found in the first and subtlest element, Shiva.
Thank you so much for being the one to read that,
That was
very
a tough
challenging
one.
paragraph. I did want us to take a look at that. Okay, so this is talking about the tattvas. Here's a little image of this is the tattvas as displayed in
Is there
this is
a way to make it a little bigger? I
yeah,
just see
Wallace.
people
Bigger is gonna be tough. We're gonna run out of room, but I can that's sorry, this is so okay, so I can't make it
Sorry.
any better.
Okay.
They just the vertical space is just limited. But okay, so the tattvas are the creative, how the universe unfolded, right? We've seen this a lot. We're all still working to understand it. We're all still, dealing with it. It's like I look at this as almost like the periodic table of yoga, where you start to see all the elements and how they mix and match and become reality. So the top of this periodic table is Paramashiva. It's undivided consciousness, pure awareness. Okay, and then you got Shiva and Shakti, which is the dance, the play of Shiva and Shakti that creates all of manifestation. That's the 2 circles intertwining. And then from there we actually have a few more pure tattvas, which represent pure Shiva and Shakti before it truly has become reality, where it's dancing and creating, but the creation hasn't quite become something that's separate. And then you have this big line right here called Maya, I think you can see my cursor. And Maya is when reality gets produced and suddenly we have a subject and an object. There's you and there's something else. There's objects in the world. There's a sense of separateness, of illusion, of all the stuff we suffer from. Everything starts to trickle down from there. And life just, it's almost like cells multiplying. It becomes very, very rapid and expansive, and life just starts to expand and create. We have a lot of different ways that's described here in this gray portion, which, you know, we don't have to go into all this. But then, boom, down here, Purusha and Prakriti represents sort of another like subdividing moment when things get even more complex, where it almost like feels like it turns into the truly material world, whereas the section before was almost like still had astral elements. And so the reason I bring all that up is because those were the circles within the circles within the circles that we've been reading about. And if you want to, I was just going to draw on here to give you a sense. It's not going to be circles because I think this rectangle is going to help more. But he said the very first circle was actually this one single element, Earth. The very first circle is Earth. Yeah, I apologize if you can't read it, my bad. But yeah, so Earth is this like physical thing that represents the grossest aspect of reality. And then he jumps up and he talks about from there we encompass, Earth is encompassed and goes this way, and it actually goes up to encompass everything. This part, I can't factor this one out, this clear circle. This is supposedly not in this section, but this dark circle, which includes the mind and then all the senses and their powers, as well as the elements of water, wind, etc. That's all in the next circle. And then the next one after that encompasses the thing I was talking about earlier, where it's like this concept of Maya. And Maya is like the space of like illusion that starts to create the idea of quote unquote reality and separateness and me and you and, you know, I'm from this planet, you're from that planet. That's encompassed in the next circle. And then we keep going. There's 5 circles, remember? And then according to the text, this next circle would take us all the way up to, similarly, it actually would not include, let's see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. It would actually not include, according to the text, this Shiva circle, just like this one didn't include this one here. But nonetheless, whatever, you get it. And then the final circle would encompass that last Shiva, Tattva, and Paramashiva.
Wow, that was really cool.
Cool. So those are the circles that it's describing in there with all those crazy words, but if you just take that moment to look them up, that's how it corresponds.
Can
Thank
we read? We're gonna perform that next.
Yeah. The dance
Of
of
Shiva.
Kala.
Can we read the original sutra now that we have sort of a sense of what those circles are actually talking about? Is that
Yeah.
okay with you guys? I just sort of want to see that again.
Okay, I'm gonna start here. Okay, Nivritti
No,
Kala.
the original sutra.
Oh.
Yeah, just.
Oh, okay. She's like, don't read that one again.
No, please don't. Oh.
You must make all the circles, kalas, in your body, enter into the other,
One into the other.
enter one into the other, from gross to subtle. Sort of went unmentioned that all this was taking place in our body. But I think the body is obviously not, the physical body would almost be like Earth, you know, and then the body of your senses would be that next circle, literally, which would be like, that's still your body, like your ability to hear, vision, that's still your body, it's still something you're associating with in reality. And then it would go up from there to like your sense of limitation and doership, your limitation. I know you guys can't read those anymore. All of this is how we associate with ourselves as a body. You know, your desires, Um, your knowledge, all that's your body. It's all stuff you associate with just as much as your arm or your leg. And then up here in this last circle, this is actually like your will and like the most subtle aspects of who you are, like so subtle, like these things happen before they don't even have a physical ramification. So that would be the most subtle aspect. And then finally, this would be your body at the subtlest, Shiva. So we're not really talking about out there. Well, we are, but it's all happening in here too.
It does sort of make me think of the process of meditation, where we start with our body, especially if we're newer to meditation, and it's about like finding stillness and surrendering the physical tension and tightness in the body. And it's like once we succeed at that, then we start to feel, the tensions of our mind and our thoughts and our patterns, and it's like we work to surrender that. And I'm still working on that, but it looks like after that we start to feel these subtler patterns coming up that haven't yet like taken a form of a thought, but we just feel, like the root of the pattern, and it continues. So that seems a lot more familiar to the work that we do.
I thought Dharma had a question, but he's just giving
Emoji applause.
Yeah. Any comments or questions? All right. Let's keep going because there's some fun activities in this section. It's almost like it could be like a part of our kids camp. Coming up. Activity. Here we go.
Day 1 of kids camp is going to be
So
pretty
we're going to get right
challenging.
into an activity here. He's going to explain it, and then we'll do it. Pujari, would you like to read this pink section?
For example, be situated in your mind and think of this gross world as only the invention of your mind. When you are situated in your mind, you are situated in the dreaming state. Although you are actually awake, you are in a dreaming state. Now let that dreaming state enter into the dreamless state. In the dreamless state, you become thoughtless, one-pointed. At that time, you are very near to experiencing the state of samadhi. You must practice in this way to abolish the power of ignorance, the power of illusion.
So we have a fun activity. Thanks, Pujari. So take it right from the text if you like. I'm just going to teach it in the way, that I practiced. But very simply, he's trying to take us from the waking state to the state of our thoughts to the state of, you might say, pure being, right? So the 3 states. And it starts by just looking around the room that you're in. It's so funny to actually look around, but anything that's in your field of vision. And the idea is that right now, looking around the room, or just whatever's in your field of vision, this is your waking state. You're relating to reality as objects separate from yourself. It's a very, very comfortable state to be in. It's where we're in 99% of our day usually. And then he says, okay, so this is our waking state, object reality. All right. And he says, well, from there, consider, and this is where I like to sort of blur my vision a little bit, consider that everything you're seeing is actually only an invention of your mind. Consider, I've been leaving my eyes open to practice this, but you can please feel free to do it however you like. Consider that everything you're seeing is only an invention of your mind. And now you're relating to all of this as a thought. Your dreaming state. Even though you're awake, you're in your thought mind. And then from that moment, Just let even that thought go and see where it leaves you. You're not in the object, you're not in the thought, you're just there. Feel free to take the next few moments to try it again, because sometimes the teaching can be distracting. Did anyone feel like that was productive for them? Like a productive practice that actually helped them go inside? I didn't. Yeah. Cool. Do you have any comments or any questions about it as a practice?
Thank you for letting me read that, because I really, that's the easiest way for me to relate to gross and subtle, is to think of it as going into the dream state. As you know from like teacher training, like I like this exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dharma.
I like, it's almost like you're tricking your mind in a way, right? In a certain sense, like be situated in your mind and think that the world is only an invention of your mind. It's really interesting. It's like you're putting on a certain perspective that you're not used to, that I'm not used to living in, right? Like I can touch this thing, I can feel this thing, it's real. And instead it's like blurring that perception and thinking it from another perspective is helpful. It's almost like when you asked us to focus on an object, that was also helpful, because it's almost like I can imagine looking at that object, and then I can imagine myself sitting here, and instead of my head being on top of my shoulders, that object is where my head could be. And it's almost like a trick of the mind, and all of a sudden there's something different that's possible through like an imagination. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's useful or not, but it's like a trick in a way that can be helpful to get out of my thoughts.
Yeah, he comments on that specifically about how this is an exercise of your imagination later in the sutra, but I'm not finding it right away. But yeah, absolutely. It's really insightful to like narrow in on like that's its power. Tulsi. Sorry. Go ahead, Tulsi.
Keep it going. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. I don't know how to work this right now. Okay. It seems like the witness state.
Mm. Tulsi only speaks in sutras.
And just so you know, Arya and Tulsi, when you unmuted, the video went off. So if that was on purpose, that's okay, but we can't see you.
Yeah, the witness state definitely comes to mind. It's almost to that transition from the thought to thoughtlessness. For me, it didn't even really have an object in it anymore. So almost felt like I was for me with the witness, I'm used to like seeing a situation. I almost feel like for me, like the witness was that second level where I was like, this is all a manifestation of my mind. And that made me like observe it from this like detached place. But then that like third prompt, I was like, now let even that go. Almost felt like it dropped me just a little bit into some territory that I don't really have words for. Whereas the second one definitely felt like the witness to me too.
I like that example of the witness state, Tulsi, because I feel like it's something that we can understand of like how we can still have like the gross circle with us, but also be in a different space at the same time, where it's like the idea of like taking it with you but not but like getting bigger at once. So that's really helpful for me.
Well, there is another type of meditation. He begins the next paragraph. Shall we? Still got a pretty good amount of time, so let's give it a shot. Raise your hand if you want to read. Octavia, great. I saw your hand go up. I think it was accidental though. So you're gonna read this green part, and then I'm gonna turn the page for you.
Okay. There is another type of. Oh, you have to do the breath.
Oh, is it already off the screen for you? There's another type. Yeah, isn't there one more line?
There is another type of meditation in which you imagine your gross body is consumed by flames and burned to ashes. Here you must first meditate, imagining that this body pervades this whole universe, beginning from Kalishna Rajra, the grossest point of world, and ending with Santa Tita Kala,
Yep.
the blessed point of the world. Then put your attention on the big toe of your left foot and imagine that Kaligni Radra vigorously producing its fire and burning brilliantly is rising, consuming your body in flames, so there is nothing left of your body but ashes. This kind of meditation uses the power of imagination. Ultimately, it will also be successful.
So we have another practice.
Maybe don't do this one at kids camp. It might be too intense.
But you could make a fun version of it. It could be like, imagine your body's whipped cream and then you eat it all or something. So this part is actually detailed at the end of the sutra really clearly. So I highlighted it with the intention that we could use this as our meditation prompt. So this is recreating. This is the original text that the other part of the text is actually describing. So let's read this one too, and then let's actually like use it as our fodder for meditation. Jatila? You want to give it a shot? Are you near enough to read it? If you're not, I totally understand. Your mic won't pick it up.
Reading?
Yeah.
Yes. The state of Kalagni Rudra resides in the big toe of your left foot. Using your imagination, generate fire from that Kalagni and then, using that fire, completely incinerate your body. You must imagine your whole body has become ashes. Then the highest piece of God consciousness will shine in your consciousness.
So just take a moment and practice this to an extent that you feel comfortable with. You know, if that visualization just doesn't feel right for you today, it's no problem. It's an ancient one from the Vijnana Bhairava, and it's meant to help you sort of work your attention from the grossest, right? Your left big toe, from the grossest to the subtlest. And so this fire, I almost imagined it like how a wick of like a fireworks, you know how, or like they do when you're like leading to like a stick of dynamite or something, how it burns, but it's not like a flame. It's like almost like incinerating the wick as it goes, and it leaves behind this form of the wick that if you were to touch it with your finger, it would just fall apart. And so you can picture that wick like starting at your left big toe and just works its way up through the body. Try to feel it making its way all the way up to through the waist, past the belly, past the chest, the shoulders and the neck and the head, until you're just this ash that's in this form. What would be left if the wind blew? Feel free to move your spine and your shoulders and your neck. You can just break out any of that crustiness that would be left. And any comments or questions about that practice? Well, we're getting a lot of practice in this session. It's interesting. It's sort of worked its way to become that. Yeah, Radharani.
That practices made me think, go back to that translation of Jayadeva saying of this dissolution, like this dissolving that gross body. That was great.
Ah, yes, the dissolving.
I love this one because I don't know why, but that feeling of really letting go of all of your limitations and burning them up and just feeling, I don't know, I had my word that I was going to come out, pure consciousness, or just pure without all the stuff. I like this meditation a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels good to burn it up and not just put it in the corner. Yes, I didn't see. Who was it?
Eldo?
Elda.
Jatila, maybe?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna agree with Usha. I really like this one, and she said exactly what I was thinking. But I really like it too because it's like everything we hold in our body, all of our ego and sense of like little I-ness, it's all gone. So what's left is just something so pure. Like all of your tensions, I mean, really they're associated with our individuality, and our body kind of is that manifest. So burning that all up, it's like, it's really refreshing.
Refreshing.
Yeah, it sort of helped me like have a sense of my body not being confined, or myself not being confined to this body. Like especially when Satyam said like the wind blows, and then it was just sort of like, oh, there's not this form. Like it's sort of like that first exercise where our mind creates the form, and it felt like as Jatila said, just refreshing, but like liberating to not be trapped or confined.
Felt like taking a shower almost. That was interesting. When you said that, I was like, oh, it was refreshing. Like I didn't even realize it until you said it.
Dharma?
I liked it a lot. I liked how it focused on the left big toe, because I don't think I think a lot about my left big toe, like unless like I stub it or, you know, and the fact that it was like a source of great like power to transform was really special.
Does anyone know anything about the left big toe in like Ayurveda? Is that like a thing? I know okay. Yeah, I'm just trying.
Yeah, that's true.
I did something after I really enjoyed the experience, and I was like, but my mind didn't quite dissolve. And so I visualized the same thing of just like all my thoughts being that wick that Satyam just described so vividly. And it was really fun to do that same thing just within my mind. But I don't know if it counts because it wasn't in the Vijnana Bhairava. But
It's interesting in the other translation Dave is saying, he says it's his right foot.
Oh, classic. Yeah. It must just mean start at one of your toes.
Yeah, I don't think there's any right or left, evidently.
Cool. That's actually
Huh.
good to know.
Or maybe they were like in Nemesis.
Singh was his student, Lakshmanju's student. So.
I just had a thought, maybe one of them was doing mirroring.
When Lakshmanju taught
He was like,
him
this toe.
side. And Jai Davis Singh was like, which is it? Is he
Like,
mirroring?
I remembered it was this side. It was 20 years ago when we did this practice together.
Good one, Usha.
Yes, Jai.
So I just remember a long time ago, Faith used to get migraines, and the only thing that would resolve the migraines was she went to this doctor in Boulder, and anyway, they told her to concentrate on her feet and concentrate on heating her feet up, and the idea was that it would take the heat from the migraine down.
Oh, I think I've heard about that actually.
Have you tried that? And like they put
that as like a remedy for migraine.
Yeah, like the thermometer would actually, at the feet, would actually get hot.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So there is some connection.
Yeah, Pujari, that sort of makes me think like the reason why we didn't even have to talk about the mind is because it's like if you're bringing all your focus to your big toe and letting that incinerate everything, it's like the mind's already gone because your focus was in the toe. So that was really helped me not have to do the same thing again in my mind afterwards. Next time.
It's been so fruitful. Just a lot of practice, a lot of reflection. It's been really good. We have about 8 to 10 minutes left. Do you think we should just do that one again? Because there's one more, but it's like it feels like why waste it,
Everybody okay with burning up again?
You guys want to do the wick? Because it's like I want to sort of like incorporate. I feel like motivated now even more. Like, oh, okay, all the reasons it works. So I can read it for you, and y'all can chill, and then do your practice, and then we'll just do this for the last 5 to 7 minutes. Cool. I'm going to read the first translation. It'll be fun. Okay. Here you must first meditate, imagining that this body pervades this whole universe, beginning from Kalagni Rudra, the grossest point of world, and ending with Shantatita Kala, the subtlest point of the world. Then put your attention on the big toe of your left foot and imagine that Kalagni Rudra vigorously producing its fire and burning brilliantly is rising, consuming your body in flames, so there is nothing left of your body but ashes. Once you've allowed your body to become ashes, you can turn to the more subtle circle inside that. Letting any thought that arises turn to ash over and over. Whatever you perceive as external to your awareness, let that turn to ash. the burning takes place within the breath. Try to ride the edge of your breath, like the edge of a wick, burning down. Seems like a really good practice to do tension release after, because you literally are ash. You can take your time with that. Yeah, the tension release would be pretty helpful after that kind of work. And that does conclude our class, of course, for today. We are excited about, continuing to cultivate this setting as an opportunity for all of us to deepen our practice, and I'm so grateful that we get to meet once every 2 weeks to do it. We had some ideas, or we'll do it quickly because we're out of time. But
I just wanted to say, reading this stuff is so challenging, and then when we do it together and everybody shares, it really just makes it fun and relatable. So, thank you for helping bring these texts to life. It's really like your focus and your sharing that allows us as a sangha to do so much more than any one of us could try to do reading this book on our own. So
yeah, really fun, and yes, I love it. Group setting, it's awesome. If you one idea that we had to put the ball in your court a little bit to help you just sort of play with this on your own was that I've been putting these up just on our blog on Konalani's webpage, because there's the option to comment on it. I'm just putting up the video of like us with the audio behind it, and the text. And we thought that maybe taking just 15 minutes right now, if you have
five,
it, or
1 minute. You've got one minute.
Yeah. And just sort of reflecting on like what landed for you, like what really landed, and then it's a way for all of us to just sort of like glimpse at like what really affected, what's going to be a part of your practice for the next couple weeks because of this, and then just dropping that little comment in. So it's really easy to find. It's just, Konalani's yoga.org, and there's a tab at the top that says blog, and then you scroll down and you'll see this, Shiva Sutra 3.4 kind of post. And anyway, I just thought it'd be a fun place to let the comments build and get a little discussion going. I do it on the Facebook thing, but the posts go down so quick, I don't think we'd be able to find it, and it's really hard to find. So I just thought it'd be easier on the website.
Yeah, I feel like I learned so much, and then the class ends, and it's like 2 weeks until we have it again, and I kind of forget about all the gems that we've
Yeah,
unearthed
yeah.
together. So we were just trying to think of like how can we actually use this to keep working
And I'm gonna
growing.
drop my notes into a comment so it can be there. But thanks for staying a couple minutes late.
Hi everybody, and bye Eldo. So fun to
Yeah.
have you. Congrats on finishing kids camp this
Oh,
week and
yeah.
amazing gardens. And I didn't get to say hi to you, Tula. And I don't know if that's Nataraj in the back. I'm thinking it is, but
No,
good to see
I'll
all
tell
you
Natesh
guys.
hello. But yeah. Thanks everyone. Have a great weekend. Or actually see you tomorrow.
Yeah.